Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Tirana YouTube channel. I am Stefano Tirana. This is the place where we talk about movies, media, and the world from a Christian perspective. Today we're doing something different. I'm going to be talking about my experience at film school, what I paid thousands of dollars to learn, and I'm going to tell you it for free. This video also goes out to anybody looking to go to university, any parents looking to help their kids decide whether or not they should go to university or college, and not necessarily film school. I'm going to be talking about a lot more than that. So without further ado, let's get into talking about the current state of university. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about applies to a lot of professors. I did have really good professors. I had people that really cared about education. They really cared about showing both sides, making sure we were well informed on the subjects that we were learning, and really cared for their students. There were other professors, though, that I think did not care about their students at all. They really just cared about pushing their agenda in the classroom. And regardless of what your political beliefs are, I don't think the classroom is a place that should be co-opted by either right-wing or left-wing thinking. This is a place for kids to be safe and for students to learn and to develop critical thinking in discerning their way around the world. I am going to be very harsh on the professors that use their position of authority, use their position of influence in toxic ways. Again, this doesn't apply to every professor, but I think some of the people in these institutions are bad actors. So first thing I'm going to say is, if you don't need a university for your career, do not go. And it's sad that I have to say it, because universities used to be a very important institution in creating well-formed, thoughtful individuals. But that's just not the case anymore. So if you're not a doctor or an engineer or a nurse or somebody who needs a proper certificate at the end of their schooling to say that they know how to save lives or anything like that, I don't think you should go. Especially when it comes to film school. In my experience, there is not a single thing that I learned in film school that I could not have learned on YouTube. And that's terrible to say, but if you have the drive, if you have the initiative, if you really want to be making film, making videos, making art, you're gonna find ways of learning this on your own. And in a lot of cases, better. Yeah, you're learning from people with some kind of experience, but in my experience, the professors had either been out of the game for a very long time or had experience in things that I had absolutely no interest in, worked with genres and types of media that I didn't think were all that good. And let's just say we weren't learning from Hollywood's biggest directors, and these were the people that were grading our assignments. They were picking which films got made from which students, with the intention of this being a representation of the university, not so much that this would be an educational experience for the students. It was a lot about the prestige of being at this university and the way this university presented itself to other people in the film community. And especially if you're somebody who really doesn't know what they want to do, I don't think committing to a 4-year, multi-thousand-dollar commitment is the way to go. If you think film is interesting, all the more power to you. I say just get started. Use your phone. Get some friends together. Have fun. Don't make it a investment that will break you for years, and try it out. Maybe by the end of it, like me, you'll realize that I really don't want to have anything to do with the Canadian film industry, but at least you wouldn't have spent a lot of money. And for me, it took going to university to find that out. Those who are not aware, the Canadian film industry is, I don't want to say it's a joke, but it is purely government subsidized projects where the government has to approve your scripts to give you money. So all the projects coming out of English Canada, at least, are in some ways government media. This is through their funding company slash division called Telefilm Canada. So if you are a Canadian filmmaker, you will have to bend to the will of the Canadian government to secure funding, because there aren't enough people watching Canadian movies to be able to sustain profitable media companies that aren't government subsidized. If you're a Canadian, don't let that discourage you. If you really want to make films, there's other ways of securing funding, but do not go through the government. We all know how the government is with money. Second of all, I kind of touched on this, but the price is too high. It's really quite astounding how much debt that I am in after film school, without any kind of real substantial return on investment outside of what I could have done outside of film school. Tuition prices are absolutely insane. Mostly it's because the government kind of gives you a blank check to go to university, which is part of the problem, because that lets the universities know that they can charge absolutely whatever they want. And the end result is you have to pay more money than ever. You know, back in the 50s, you could work a part-time job, pay for your schooling, finance a car, and settle down and have a family. But those are absolutely not the days, especially when a lot of these degrees don't have a high return on investment when it comes to jobs that you can get once you finish your degree. If you look at it like this, if I took the amount of money that I would have owed in tuition and put it towards an actual film, I could have financed a feature film myself, would have been low budget, or I could have financed a really, really good short film. And would I have learned more from making that film than going to film school? Yeah, I would have to learn about financing films, making films on a budget, organizing people, hiring people, and that would have been all of film school right there on one project. I really think it's problematic that people have to enter this kind of indentured servitude state to get an education. It's either the solution is the government doesn't get involved at all and universities will just have to charge what people can actually afford, or fully public subsidized university the way public grade schools are run. I don't see this middle ground solution continuing on much longer without imploding. You already kind of see this with the recent announcement of student debt forgiveness in the United States, but that's just kind of a band-aid on the actual structural collapse going on at the university level. And the third point I'm going to make is based on their ideological approach in what they taught. And regardless of where you come from, I think this is going to resonate with you, regardless if you even agree with them. The level of inconsistency between what was taught in classrooms and the way the institution, the professors, the university was run is completely hypocritical and incongruous with each other. It's really quite astounding what I learned as a film student who was supposedly trying to learn about film while we were just being taught about social issues. And social issues is important. It's important to learn about these things. But it wasn't an education. It was a purely one-sided perspective on things that never even really panned out. So, for example, the central issue that the universities were obsessed with and are still obsessed with in Canada are problems regarding Indigenous people and the history and current state of affairs when it comes to the relationship between what they would call settlers, which is anybody who isn't Indigenous, and Native Canadians. So this would be things like opening up every single class with a land acknowledgement. If you're not aware about what a land acknowledgement is, it's basically somebody gets up in front of a crowd before a major event like graduations. In this case, it was every class, and acknowledge the fact that certain indigenous tribes had lived on this land before us. And not only that they lived on this land before us, is that they had a semi-legal, semi-moral right to the land. So for anybody who has some critical thinking in their brain, it's very apparent what the hypocrisy is here. It's that we're going to say that these indigenous people have rights to the land, but there's no way in heck that they're going to actually own the land, that we're going to give them any land, that we're going to support them, that we're going to do anything meaningful outside of just words to give these indigenous people their supposed land back. They're acting as if they believe the exact opposite of what they're saying. Absolutely no professors that I went to school with gave up their house to an indigenous family. They were perfectly comfy and cozy, making hundreds of thousands of dollars and not putting any money where their mouth was, while simultaneously causing intense white and settler guilt amongst their students. There was a intense push to victimize minorities, because the message in the classroom was that if you're a minority, you're oppressed and you have absolutely no chance of succeeding. And it was group blame on white people 24/7. And as a Latino myself, I found this absolutely disgusting. How can you blame kids that had no choice in being here for things like residential schools, for things that weren't even committed by people they were related to? This group blame is incredibly toxic to interracial, intersectional discussions, and it radicalized people very intensely because all they heard was a message of hate. Furthermore, if you came from any kind of conservative background, I had encountered very intense opposition from certain professors. I had a professor go up in front of the class and say that if you don't agree with a woman's right to choose and that you believed in God, I don't know why those are put together, but if you believed in those things, your beliefs were from the Stone Age, and that's the end of a discussion in a classroom. And if you tried to lift up your voice, if you tried to disagree with the professor in your papers, you'd get lower marks every single time. When I would push back against the ideas in class, I would get lower marks. But if I just went along with it, I'd get, A's. Furthermore, since the school had such a grip on which productions and which films got made, if you didn't fall in line, you got blacklisted. Allegedly. You allegedly got blacklisted. That means that your films would not be made, and your scripts would not be read, you would not pass interviews, and the whole system was just incredibly broken. There's absolutely no place in the world where this flies. If you're a customer paying for something, you have the power, you have the money, and a business can choose to meet your needs, or they can go bankrupt. But here, universities can get away with whatever they want because they have a blank check from the government. So in the way my particular film school worked is there would be an application and interview process to get into the school. But then every year there would be a secondary interview / application process to get into the specific stream that you wanted. My particular goal for university was to make movies. I don't think that's an unreasonable demand. I wanted to direct a film. I wanted to write and direct. I wanted to learn how to do that, but I was never given the opportunity to. Instead, I was put into streams that I didn't want to be a part of. I was denied learning what I wanted to learn, all while simultaneously having to pay for it and having to go into debt for things that I didn't want to learn. That's kind of the main thing. You're kind of put into classes as well that have nothing to do with your degree as mandatory requirements for graduation. These classes they were pure indoctrination classes to keep you inside their narrow frame of thinking as long as possible. And then after all that, you don't graduate on time because the requirements are so high and they want to squeeze all the money they can out of you until you have to leave. So I didn't learn what I wanted to learn. I was forced to learn things that were completely outside of my moral convictions, and if I didn't fall in line, I'd get punished for it. The price was absolutely exorbitant, and after all that, I didn't even graduate. So if you're going to university, if you're thinking about going to university, I would just put major brakes on that whole thing, especially if you're going for arts. If you don't want to be a scholar, if you don't need a degree for your field, this is not the place to go learn anymore, unfortunately. If you're a parent who's kind of forcing their kid to go to university, I would just say, don't do that. It's not the same thing as it was. It's not, universities are doing everything they can to lose their prestige, to lose their moral credibility. It seems like the fastest rate that they can. The best thing you can do at a young age, honestly, is to take initiative. Start a business. Go out, learn everything you can on your own. Work. I honestly learned more life lessons from working a part-time fast food job than I did at university. It was more formative for my character, honestly. So that's the current state of things. Hopefully my experience will help you make decisions about what you want to do. I'm not telling you what to do with your life. If you got a free college ride with scholarships and all that, by all means, go make them pay for it. And if it was free, whatever. But if you're the one paying the bill at the end of the day, demand more from your institutions and demand more from your government and demand more from your school. So hopefully that's been helpful. If you want to follow me, hit the subscribe button. I make videos about movies, media, and the world. If you're particularly interested in Christianity, this channel is also pretty good for you. And more videos are to come. So thank you for watching.